Scrimmage number 1 is in the books. They scrimmaged on Wednesday, had a 4-day holiday break for Easter, came back and hit the practice field hard and long on Monday, and gearing up for a practice on Wednesday, and then they'll scrimmage again on Thursday night at Neyland Stadium. Brent, some of the big takeaways now entering week number 3 of spring practice, and of course, scrimmage 1 in the rearview mirror.
Well, I think for now it's about which of these young guys take a step forward, because now you're adding more stuff. Guys' heads are swimming a little bit. Who comes out on the other side of that, right? I think you got a great idea where you are on the defensive line. I think you know where some of your starters are on the offensive line. I'm not saying you completely shut some people down, but at this point, I don't think you want to risk injury for some guys who you know are going to help you and you know are in good shape. And then it's about, where are you in the secondary with the transfer guys? Where's Chris Brazel, who had a really nice scrimmage? In terms of that wide receiver competition, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. You've got to figure out what you are at running back over the course of the next 2 weeks to decide if you need to go portal hunting or not go portal hunting with the injury to Cam Seldon. I think when you look at offensive priorities, that may be the biggest priority left for this spring because that dictates your next move. You were never going to solve the left guard situation in spring ball, right, Eric? I mean, I don't think any of us thought they were going to walk out of spring and go, that's the guy. You walk out of spring and you have to make the declaration because the window is there. Do I need another tailback or am I good until Cam Seldon returns late September, 1st of October?
Yeah, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. That left guard battle is going to go into camp. Those, we'll see how big the rotation is at wide receiver, but those guys are going to be battling all throughout camp. And Thornton's had a good spring. Brazel's had a good spring. Staley, Mike Matthews have made some noise. Squirrel's there. Of course, you have those two, second-year players going on third-year players, and Nimrod and Caleb Webb. We'll be interested to see with them in the second window of the transfer portal. But all those battles were going to linger into fall camp. You got to figure out if you have confidence in Khalifa Keith and Deshaun Bishop, because if you don't, then you got to go out and get a body in the transfer portal. And sure, you don't want to just take a body, and maybe that was poor phrasing, because I don't think they'll take just anybody, but you need to go get some help in the transfer portal. So I think that is the biggest to-do left on the spring to-do list, if you will. And then I know recency bias here because they spoke yesterday, but some interesting comments coming out of Willie Martinez and some of those defensive backs. I think Jalen McMurray, a lot of good things were said of him, and he's kind of that third cornerback right now, and they like to play 4, at least they did, last year before injury, but a lot of good stuff coming about Jalen McMurray, saying he's the most consistent of all those guys right now. The top-end high talent of Jamar McCoy, I think, is going to be fun to watch. Ricky Gibson, as he continues to grow, and, Andre Turrentine at safety, carrying himself like he is the guy and he is the starter, and Jacoby Thomas, where's John Slaughter? Running back, secondary. Some of the same conversations we had coming into the spring, but that's kind of what I'm looking for over the next, 2 weeks and the last 2 scrimmages they have before spring practice is all said and done.
Yeah, and then I think, some other individuals who I think have stood out a little bit, taking advantage of opportunities. I think, obviously Keenan Peedley is on a pitch count, if you will. They're being cautious there. And with Elijah Herring out, that means Jeremiah Thielander has got a ton of run, as at the number one, with the number ones. I think Thielander's having a really good spring. I think he and William Inge have hit it off really, really well, which doesn't surprise me. Inge, you can tell just watching his demeanor on the field and the practice field, he's a teacher, just a film junkie, and I think Thielander, son of a coach, is just a guy who soaks up that kind of stuff. I think that's been a very smooth transition. Thielander and Brian Jean-Marie had a great relationship. I think Inge and Thielander have had a good relationship, and I think Thielander's earned and garnered a lot of praise by what he has gotten done to this point.
It sounds like Edwin Spillman's having a good spring too.
Yeah, for a guy who got here late, I think that he is a guy who plays really physical, and so I think when you look at it, you take that physicality, Eric, and you're like, all right, I don't have to teach him that. I got to, I might have to tell him, whoa, not sick him. Now it's about him learning to play in the framework. But for a guy who got here basically the Monday spring ball started, to make some noise, I don't know how much he's going to be in a rotation at linebacker, but with Carter out and some things there, he's gotten more opportunities this spring. It's a great decision by him to get here. I think he's definitely going to be a real factor for him on special teams. And we'll see how much William Inge rotates linebackers. Does he play it like Brian Jean-Marie did, play a lot of bodies, or does he a little bit more kind of play your starters and don't have a heavy rotation there? We'll just have to see because we haven't seen that. He hasn't had the opportunity to show that yet. So I think all in all, it's been a good spring, solid spring. Some questions that you're dealing with now that maybe you didn't think you were going to have to deal with because of the injury to Cam Seldon. I think your quarterbacks played well, and I think you like your transfers. I think you feel like you probably hit the transfers. The Kesselman kid at tight end has been a bigger surprise. He and McMurray have been the two biggest surprises for me from the transfer portal standpoint. Everybody else had generated some buzz. Those two guys were kind of afterthoughts in a lot of ways going into spring. Those two guys have had two of the bigger springs of any of the transfers out there.
Yeah, and it makes you deeper. I mean, especially at tight end where you and I harp all the time the importance, but also how thin you are because you play two. Suddenly you have a guy that feels like you can play and depend on in this offense. And they always talked about wanting to play three. We've never seen it. I doubt we'll see it, but that's your third guy right there. And so he's had a really good spring. And then again, Jalen McMurray, I guess I knew that he was a veteran and all that. And he kind of said, hey, D1 ball is D1 ball. I recognize this is the SEC, better players. It's a little bit faster, but I know what I can do and I know my strengths. And that's kind of what his message was on Monday. And he's like, and I'm just excited to continue to grow. And it feels like they like their corners. They're just trying to find that fourth one, Christian Conyer, Jordan Matthews, to kind of join the party. But I would agree with you. I think the transfers have been really good so far. They're going to have to continue to come along. This little last stretch of spring practice, man, I would very, very strenuous pitch count, if you will, as you pointed out, for Keenan Peely, for Cooper Mays, for Squirrel White, for Dylan Sampson.
Bubble wrap.
Get in and get out and let these other guys get to work.
I mean, at this point, I don't know that those guys need scrimmage work. I mean, I just would be really cautious. Squirrel's a little bit different because you got depth at receiver. But, boy, at center, I'm not taking chances. I'm not taking any more chances at running back, given my concerns that I have there. Peely, I don't need to see a whole lot more, and I want to be careful with those veteran defensive linemen. I think you got to be smart to the finish line here.